Have you lost the connection with your higher self? Are you noticing the dis-ease of the outside world? It's time to reconnect with nature and each other and raise our consciousness, vibration, and frequency. Together we can create a world of peace and abundance. It's Spiritual Revolution Radio with your host, Dr. Will Miller.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spiritual Revolution Radio. Today, I have Nicole Ashton back. I'm happy to have her back. She is a world-renowned healer and a really good friend of mine. And we've been talking about so many subjects lately that we decided today we're just going to kind of go with the flow a little bit, right? And we were teasing our engineer, Sean, before the show that we may actually ask him questions about what we're talking about, so he has to stay awake this time.
You have to. Okay.
So, what I want to kind of go down, I want to go down this path. You and I have talked a lot, really over the past week, just really about kind of the state of the world, where everybody's at, and what's happening. And before we get too far down, never mind. Say what you want. Yeah. We get another letter. We get kicked off YouTube. What the heck?
The state of the world. Wow, that's interesting.
Well, that just brings us to the state of the world. I mean, that all this is happening, you know. And I'm referring to a couple of weeks ago. YouTube sent me some nasty notes and emails saying that they were canceling some of the shows from some of my guests that had been on, because they had written new policy that it was now against. So I went off YouTube for a minute, and my shows are back, except for the ones that say what they don't want people to hear.
That's like a celebration. That means you're doing something right.
That's what I say, right? And then I get told here yesterday by the station manager that maybe I'd gotten a letter for the same types of things. So please, this is a show
Which
about...
means people are paying attention and they're listening.
Right.
If they're complaining, they're listening.
Yeah, right? I'm totally with that. And the whole thing is, if you look at it, I mean, out of all three of our listeners, one actually disagrees with us. So
The most amazing thing is you don't always get that true count, especially when they don't want you to know they're listening to you. So, or you
That's
wouldn't have
right.
got kicked off. Just saying.
So I'm going to start out kind of with a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, and I talked about it on my radio show yesterday. Those that were listening to the radio show yesterday, it's one of my favorite Albert Einstein quotes. He says, "Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding." And I think that is such a cool quote because, you know, in the world today, all of our leaders seem to be they have this idea, we're going to create peace by force. We're going to force people to be peaceful. We're going to force people to like this. We're going to force people to accept this. We're going to force everyone to think this way, right? But that is really not, no one really feels at peace right now. That's not working. And really through knowledge and understanding is the only way I truly know how you can find peace. What do you think about that?
Most interesting thing is I haven't really felt a peaceful message come through them saying that or even any mental note saying that peace is on their agenda. So as far as force goes, power versus force right there, when you bring up Einstein, he had it, well, I want to use understanding as very loosely as possible because to his the concept he can hear, understanding the relativity and whatnot. But as far as the forcing people to wake up is how I see it more than peace, because there is no peace right now. The only place most are finding peace is inside of their hearts. A lot, actually almost everybody is finding ways to buy things, to connect to people, to make them feel whole, to outside. They're seeking so many different things outside of their self because of fear, and then they're cuddling it up, and keeping it to their demise, which is unfortunate at this time. But also in the grandiose of it all. I knew 30 times I was going to get that word right.
I'm impressed. You did it in 3.
Yeah. there is a revolution, I just looked at your sign, says a revolution of waking up. So I look at it as we are conscious beings here. And people are realizing they are their consciousness, that consciousness isn't outside of you, that you're this gifted ability, which we all are in our own ways, but you don't have to have a superpower human gift to know that you're a conscious being. But like once you start getting those kind of concepts, understandings, perceptions, then your whole entire world starts to shift. So I guess my view on it is again, the power versus force. What does that even mean? And take the power away from the government, take the secret away, and love each other, be one with each other, and open that heart space up, because that heart space is way more stronger than any of the social media could ever fear you into your brain.
Well, I think you make a good point, but I think we need to take it a little further than that, and that is that it's time. It is time for us to start to stand up. Start to share that message. Start as people awaken. That's great. So you say you've now woke up, right? And you're no longer asleep, and you see this spiritual side of you, and you see this other side of you that you want to learn about. But we're in a state in this world where we've got to get to a good 1% of us that are all working together with the same message, standing up for what is right, not what we're told is right, but what we know is right. I think those are two different things. And start to stand up for that, and as a group of people, because if we don't, I do think we're doomed. And it's not pretty, right? So I think we have to not only awaken, not only get inside of ourselves and fill that heart space, but it's time to start standing up.
The most amazing thing is we get to step into that power. We get to step into that heart space, and we get to unite if we choose to. And as we are bringing in as you make that call, as you say, I'm ready, the energies will start to flow to you. Einstein told you that. So if we'll go back to, the power versus force, the power is within you. So yes, it is time, air quote time, because it is time. It's time for people to, loved ones, when you opened your eyes coming out of that womb, you woke up. So I use that awake very, very, interestingly, differently than most, but it's time to remember. It's time to remember who you are. And
that's a good way.
And not think that, oh my gosh, being awake is something that I have to work really freaking hard for. Sorry. You already did. You already worked really, really hard to get there. You came out of that. You were born. You learned to walk. Like when I died and came back, I learned to walk. I learned to talk. I'm 33 years old, and I had to do that all over again to appreciate that I'm awake. So the idea of that you wake up, come on, people, wake up. You are. Open your eyes. Be grateful for what's around you. Ask for different things. Ask for more information. Appreciate those little things. That is when you start becoming conscious. You're already awake. You're already conscious. Bring it into one area. Then share your gifts with each other and watch what happens.
Well, and I think you make a good point. It's really remembering, because we were all born divine. We're divine beings, and we're trained or taught to be something different than that, but that's not who we truly are. So really, it's just remembering who you truly are, and then taking action. There's three parts to this. You think, you feel, and then there has to be action behind that, right? For anything to come to fruition or to happen. So and that's what I say about its time. It's time to start taking action. It's time to start standing up. It's time to start saying, you know what? This is not a war, because war never solves anything either. But it is a spiritual revolution, a peaceful revolution, where we get to stand up and we get to stand in our own place. And we get to be accepting and loving instead of fearful and hateful.
It's an invitation. It's an invitation to be the best version of you.
Yeah.
There's no war or peace unless you're inviting it. So invite peace in instead of pushing it to be somebody else's idea. Because when you're ever forcing or pushing anything, you're living somebody else's agenda, which is never going to be in your design, because you designed this experience before you came here. You're the grand designer. So when you're living in a world created by a different designer, by somebody else, then you're always feeling off. And I'm so excited for Sean to chime in.
See, we're making Sean get involved today.
He is, our engineer is here.
Does this thing work? Okay. I'm thinking about peace and war and love and hate and whatnot. The thought that's coming to mind is the achievement of peace is only appreciated through the turmoil of war. The appreciation of love is only accomplished through heartbreak. So it's nice. I look at it and go, peace is great, but the only way to really have it and to achieve it is through adversity. Otherwise, we can't appreciate it. I'm going to go back kind of sci-fi, Matrix movies. One of the underlying subtext was that there's multiple versions of the Matrix. One of them was a completely perfect, peaceful society. And they said the only thing more perfect than the program to make this perfect society was the perfection of its failure, for nobody being able to accept the fact that things are that perfect. So it seems like in human nature, we expect and we want, it has to be adversity before we can appreciate peace.
And I agree with you. There has to be chaos before people will even move to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. There has to be enough chaos that people they stop being complacent. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'm done with this. I'm going to start standing up, right? And I'm going to start making a change. And I mean, one of the natural laws of the universe is the law of polarity. There has to be a negative and a positive polarity to everything. So without the negative, there can be no positive, and without the positive, there can be no negative. They go hand in hand.
So yin and yang, and that's why we're here, is to transmute the dark. That's reminding the lack of light that. What are you looking at? What's that thought?
Oh no, it's I sit here and go the yin, because I thought the yin and yang as well, and
of course
but
you did.
The only as I've thought before, the only way to appreciate a love, usually you appreciate how much you were in love after you're going through the heartbreak,
correct,
or how much you love somebody after they're gone, and whatnot, and then you hope that the next time that comes around, you're like, okay, I'm going to love this next person. And
but I see what you're saying, but don't you want to come to a point where when you meet someone, that unconditional love, that appreciation, that acceptance is already there?
Yeah, and I want to eat chocolate cake and lose weight too. But,
that's what I do.
But I also know that getting to that point takes time. I think about the time that I've spent between relationships and going, I am not ready to give myself to a certain person to a certain point until I'm ready. And I know that, going through that process, it's like, okay, months after, days after, years after, I'm like, I'm not ready until I was. And so for me, it was a matter of time to grow to that point where I can be like, okay, now I'm ready to give myself to somebody. And that takes time.
Well,
that's hard.
It does take time, but the one thing in this world that never changes is change, right? Everyone changes, everyone grows, everybody changes in frequency, where everything's a vibration, right? And the reason you have friends, the clock's going backwards today. I'm all confused, by the way, Sean, looking at the clock up there. I have no idea. We're just going to have to go with the flow, and you tell us when we're done today.
Just listen for the music at the end.
Okay.
This is spirit-guided radio, right? Here we go.
Because, everything's backwards today, apparently. I'm just going back.
Clock's backward. You're talking to me. It's just cats and dogs living together.
What the heck?
There's so much chaos. It's time to stand up.
Exactly.
Anyway, my whole point with that is it doesn't matter, because everything changes with frequency. Everything, we all grow. That's what we're here to do, is experience things, to learn things, to grow. We got caught up in the mundane every day. We have to be to work, and we have to do this, and all of a sudden that's what becomes important to us. Not the true important things in life, but not our divine nature, not the fact that I should be experiencing things, that the relationships I build are what really matter, and the people I meet, and the little nuances and synchronicities that happen in our life that are so cool, we miss out on because we're so caught up and with our blinders on through our conditioning to be stuck in this mundane. And I think that's where people are tired right now. I think people are tired of that. They're fed up. That's why you have so many people quitting their jobs, and you can't find anybody to work for you, and you and everybody's struggling, and there's no acceptance in the world anymore. No one wants to accept each other's ideas. My idea is right, everybody's idea is wrong, and if you don't agree with me, there's going to be a fight, rather than just be accepting and loving, which is what I think it should be all about.
And that's why it's led by example. Words get in the way sometimes, or all the time. Most of the time.
Well, they can. Mm-hmm. They can get in the way, but they also can be, words are truly magical at times too.
Correct.
Right? And it's all about where you come from. Do you come from your heart space, or do you come from a place of fear? And really, to me, those are our choices. I can come from my heart space, or I can come from a place of fear. I can just try to make the best of it and get through this life, or I can be part of the change. Right? And which one comes from fear and which one comes from your heart space? Engineer, our friend, Sean, what do you think?
I live in fear most of my life, so it's okay. I think I understand half of the subject here. But, it's the overcoming of fear that appreciates the heart space. And I think maybe that's where I'm looking at stuff. It's like, I hear, hey, peace, people say, we need to fight for peace.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, it's interesting the cycles we go through as we're either experiencing love or peace or whatnot. Is we come into this world blank, and we're ready, and we have the majority of us have a loving life to begin with. And as we grow up, then all of a sudden we realize, oh, people are mean, and people lie, and people hurt each other, and then usually the I don't want to say the word, not ignorance. What's the word I'm looking for? Not ignorance. What's the other one? Another word. I can't think of it. Anyway, but the ignorance of life allows you to make decisions where you're taken advantage of. Then you become hurt. You're now placed in the position: do I replay that hurt to somebody else, or do I overcome it? Most of the time, we replay it. Hurt people, and then that cycle continues until we're mature enough to go, I need to snap out of this.
Well, and that's what brings your body to disease, honestly, because you can talk to someone who has been hurt, and they take that hurt and it grows, and then they go around hurting other people because they were hurt, and their body becomes dis-ease, in a state of dis-ease, right? And that's how our bodies start to fall apart, and we get sick, honestly. I always tell people, if we're in a state of disease, it's because we're not in congruency with our brain and our heart and a peace. And you've seen people like that. They're just miserable, and they share their misery with everyone. And everything you say,
right at me when you say that. Wow, I'm offended now. It's all spot on.
Actually, you're pretty good. I've been in here for a while, and you don't share your. You're pretty good at not projecting your emotions. So thank you for showing up today, because I can.
He's been in radio for a while.
Well, you're talking about projecting your fear and projecting hate and looking. I made the joke about looking right at me, and so you're saying that I just don't project at all. That I'm just a closed book. Your
emotions. You don't.
You are in a glass cage of emotion right now.
Sorry about that. Oh,
well, give me some Windex so I can see outward.
That's true.
There you go. A little bit of sunshine.
Man, you're messing with my head with that one. So you're now I feel like psychoanalyzing myself. Thanks a lot. But
no, you're not psychoanalyzing yourself. We're psychoanalyzing.
Oh, okay. All right. Go on. Talk about me. No, but I do feel that you're right to a point. There's a level of, hey, my emotions stop here. But I also feel like there's plenty of times when my emotions go on the other end of the spectrum, when I let myself go. And I feel like those are the times that either I overlove or I overhate. or I just over emotion.
How can you have one without the other?
And so then I have to be like, okay, stop. Let's bring that back. So if the pendulum is swinging way to one side or way to the other, it's like, let's keep it in the middle so that I can keep control of how I feel.
And how's that working for you? Because
Day to day, some days are better than others, not always.
Because there is no control.
No, there's not. I try to, mess with this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this to be in a better mood, and I need to exit this situation. Otherwise, I'm going to get in a worse mood. But finding that balance for me of I can't be always happy all the time. This is the way I view it. It's just like I can't be miserable all the time. Let me find my middle ground where I can kind of go back and forth as needed, but not be extreme, then have it trap me there.
Well, and again, another law of the universe is everything comes in waves, right? The tide comes in, the tide goes out, the pendulum swings to one side, pendulum swings to the other. And part of life is learning that that's going to happen and learning how to deal with those swings, right? Because we can't necessarily control that the pendulum is swinging, but we can control to how we're going to react to that swing.
No, the pendulum is still. I'm the one that's swinging.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's not what it is at all.
No, okay.
Yeah, you're just hanging on for dear life, hanging on to that pendulum going, oh my gosh.
I sense, or I feel as I went on my journey that I flipped that pendulum right. I'm like flipping that sucker because it's not that I'm joy all the time, but I'm not wanting to go back to those old sorrows. I'm not wanting to go back to that taking on other people's crap, because the only time that I have found that I've been in a really space of unhealthy space is when I am like taking on so much stuff and I'm not being true to myself. And it feels like when I was finally true to myself and say, this is how I feel inside, and went with it like that. There's still the ups and downs. There still is. Everybody goes through it, but I found they were easier because I knew that I was being true to me. But when I was looking at people or when I was dealing with situations and I wasn't being my pure light, I would be chaotic inside and everything around me would be chaotic until I hit that point of saying I'm not being honest with myself right now. And it feels like balance began to become more easier.
Well, I think it becomes a little more easy when you understand that pendulum is swinging. You can stop it from being such extremes, right? But you just even said just now that you get to those points where you know that you're kind of on that one side and you need to, and now you recognize it. And truly, isn't that the secret is learning to recognize it and question yourself all the time. I always tell people, question what your head's saying all the time, because your head's lying most of the time to you. Your heart whispers the truth. Get out of your head, get into your heart, right? But it's still, you're stuck in your head most of the day. And
if you choose.
And that's what I'm saying. It's learning to recognize that, right? When your monkey mind's spouting out all that stuff and not letting that swing quite so far to the one side or the other. I really don't know how much time we have here. 2 minutes? Okay, good. See? Yeah. It's funny how he gets quiet when you actually ask him a question, but when you don't ask a question, he's willing.
I can feel that. Let's hear it. What do you feel?
Actually, I've heard him talk more today than I think I've ever heard him talk ever.
Yeah, exactly. So. We knew this would be beautiful. So what are you feeling?
Oh, I've
not thinking.
Way too much introspection on my life, on time, even questioning what truth is. So.
I think you threw him for a loop when you said he was like, had this barrier up and stuff. No, he's over there contemplating.
Actually, I've already been told
it was a compliment in a way.
I was told that I have murder gray eyes.
Oh, grand.
I don't see them.
I had somebody else say me, I can't read you. I can't read you. And I'm like, good. So,
not me.
I'm colorblind, so I can't tell what color your eyes are anyway.
And they're gray.
Oh, okay, all right. They're a nice
they're
gray.
Cold.
Thank
they're
you,
like
thank you.
They go great with your gray shirt.
My gray shirt, my
and
gray
your gray
pants.
Yes.
It's like counting cards. Gray one, gray one, gray one.
He's the same. He can't see colors.
All right. So we got about a minute left now. All right. So I'm going to get my stuff in, find me at Life by Design Institute. Definitely come to my Facebook page. Join my private group there, Optimal Living Blueprint, because I have some cool stuff there for you if you come join. I just want to help as many people as possible find their divine self and energy. Tell us where we can find you, Nicole.
In your heart.
Oh,
I am
perfect.
Nicole Ashton. You can find me at energyhealingbydesign.com and on Facebook under Nicole Ashton.
All right. So any final words before we go? You got like 10 seconds here.
Live the best life ever.
Live the best life ever.
It's your
All right.
choice. Show up. Yay.
Love and peace, everyone. Stand up for yourself and let's rock this world. Bye.
This has been Spiritual Revolution Radio with Dr. Will Miller. For more information or to be a guest, please visit lifebydesign.institute. Join us next week for another edition of Spiritual Revolution Radio with your host, Dr. Will Miller. This has been a production from a podcast studio.